Hey everyone, welcome to the first last year podcast. I'm your host, the Godly One. Joining me today are four amazing people. We got PixelatedPower,
Howdy.
we got Marth,
What's up?
we got Baefu,
What's up?
and we got TydeTyme.
Hello.
Today's podcast is going to be focusing mostly on game balance and our opinions on what the best fiends and survivors are. Let's get started with. Alright, so first topic is maps balance. I feel like the maps are wildly inconsistent in their balance towards survivors and towards fiends. What are your guys' opinions on this? Like, could you guys rate the maps from favored to fiends to favored to survivors?
That's pretty tough. It's pretty broad.
Yeah. I gotta go for favorite overall, Bell Tower. Just the verticality of the map and how simple it
If I had to give personal opinion on all of them, personally, I think we all can agree on the library is probably Fiend's
Worst.
weakest map.
Agree.
I think that being able to run with the objectives, the discs, and how fast you can put them in, it's pretty bad.
Yep.
Bell Tower is an interesting one where I think the how far the blowtorches spawn and having to carry them, down to where you put them in. I think it's okay for fiends, but I think I've talked about this many times about the gears. I really think need to be reworked. I don't think the gears should spawn in the bell tower at all. I think they should spawn where the gears spawn, where the blowtorches spawn potentially. So you really would have to work really hard as a survivor to get those objectives done.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Anyone else? You guys go.
You gonna say something, Marth?
I was gonna say ultimately, if I was to go for, I would say Jim is probably one of the more fair balance between all of them. You would have Beltar, the second most balanced, and then you would have Library, Survivor favored, and Sawmill, I would say, is highly Fiend favored because of all the environmental kills.
I feel like Sawmill is very fiend favored, but only for Spider or only for Giant and Strangler. For Spider,
Obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
do
that's
you
interesting. That's an interesting opinion because, I get from the fiend side, all the environmental kills, it's really, really nice to take advantage of. But from the survivor perspective, I guess I actually think Sawmill's actually much more favored for survivor than people think. I think the objectives are very easy to get done. They're really not that hard to complete. Yes, the environmental kills are very dangerous, but if you played around correctly,
It's so easy.
yeah,
Yes.
I think that it becomes much more of a survivor favored map than first looked at.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you say that, then the same thing could be said for Jim and Bell Tower. Getting a blowtorch over with adrenaline's not that hard, and the crank with the proper setups with mines around corners and turrets on top of the thing, it's all the same. You can crank that out, and killer's not really going to be able to do anything if you're playing as optimal as possible. But I would say that Sawmill has the longest kind of transport, especially for the gas. It's
The gas is
and
so
then
long.
the environmental kills combined with ambushes. It's the first time that you don't just have to remember, oh hey, okay, we're in this hallway, just always hug the right wall, always hug the left wall, just don't stand in this one area ever. And with the new ambushes, it cuts off a lot of paths. I think Slasher's ambushes are some of my favorite in that map, just because it takes primary paths that you could jump down on. But if Fiends had a strongest map, it's Sawmill.
Definitely.
100%.
I mean, I agree with you on the part where you were saying you could say about all the maps. Or I don't even think there even is a really strong killer map, honestly, in the game. I really don't even think there is one right now.
I feel
That's just my opinion, but
I had an idea with the cranks because I feel like the crank objectives are just so easy to get done because you can just run by and just do them little by little, where the fiend really can't do anything to stop you. Like, what if they slowly unwound themselves while you weren't working on them? Obviously at a quarter speed, so it wouldn't be too oppressive.
That does sound pretty good, actually.
I got an interesting idea. The fiend can now kick the crank to regress it. I like this idea actually.
Okay, Dead by Daylight.
Is it gonna have
It's
the
original.
pallet animation?
Yes, it has to have the
Yes.
pallet kick animation.
It's gotta
Oh
be
my
a double
God.
kick, a little pop,
Marth, that's a brilliant idea. We should put pallets. That's what this game's really missing
Yes,
to make it
we need
make it really
Interactive
feel
environments. Yeah, survivors can no longer kill the killer at all now. It's just that by the
2.0, yes.
Okay,
For
personally. Oh, go ahead.
All right, so for Jim, okay, two things. Number one, for Jim, I feel like the basement is fiend-sided if you ignore the crank part because it's so compact. I feel, in my opinion, that's the only spot in the game that Slasher is even viable. I just don't think Slasher's a good killer at all right now.
Baefu would know.
No, I think I mean everyone has their own opinion, so I'll just please share mine and let Marth and Tide I actually think I think Slasher is the best killer right now, in my opinion.
Really?
I do think so. I think he can apply pressure, especially with the giant nerf now, to where because like giant's been heavily nerfed to where you can't charge all the time, right? And you can't apply that constant pressure, which was really what made giant so strong, was that you can charge constantly and the survivors are like always like scared constantly, but now he can't do that, so he's really more of a sit back and defend type killer. Like that's really his gameplay. Where Slasher can do that too before, but now since you really don't have to worry, you don't have to worry about stamina bar at all anymore. He can also apply pressure, and he has a power now. He has cleave, which is a really strong killer power.
That
so it's
power,
like,
the 1-2 combo with for 75 damage is just so strong.
That's got to get patched out.
Yeah. I feel like it's gonna get patched, and then I feel like Slasher's just gonna be.
I'm personally fine with the combo, the cleave combo. In my opinion, I think that being able to attack somebody and then as the survivors are pressuring, you can hit them and then cleave. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal as people made it out to be. What I do think needs to be fixed is not even like balance wise, but I think just the range of it is a bug. It's obviously not supposed to be hitting people from across a fucking table, you know what I mean, or hitting people with the cleave behind them, stuff like that. Like that stuff needs to be fixed in terms of that. But I don't even really have an issue with the cleave combo with Slasher. I think that makes him very very strong and makes him even scarier. And survivors have to respect the Slasher and know that they have that combo all the time and kind of have to play around that. I like that from the survivor side. But no, yeah, I do think now Slasher is probably the best killer. I think Strangler now has gotten extremely strong too. I mean, yes, you can't hold people as long, which is like it does suck. It kind of takes away from that whole Strangler aspect. But with how slow he drags people, with how much damage, and assuming it doesn't get canceled, obviously, assuming that, it does a ton of damage as well. So I think those two are extremely strong killers. Giant's still amazing. It's just you have to play him very differently. You can't be nearly as aggressive as you were before.
It's kind of sad to what they did to Giant. Giant was my favorite killer. He still is, but like the fact that they decreased or increased his cooldown so much, and they just didn't separate his powers of charging and grabbing, which I think would have been good for him. I think that would have been have a separate cooldown for the charge and the grab. Like the charge cooldown.
It absolutely neutered him.
Yeah, charge cooldown could be like 5 seconds or something. That's still enough time to run away from him. And grab cooldown could stay the same as it is. But they didn't do that. So now Giants are just super defensive.
Marth, Tide, what do you guys think about killers?
I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, like people complaining about the slash combo. It's only 75 damage. I've played at a time where getting grabbed by Giant was a kill guaranteed. Slasher used to do 45 every hit. Now he does what, like 20?
25.
25. It's sad.
Oh, they buffed it. That's right, because it was they hot fixed that
before.
Yeah.
So
thank the Lord.
It's honestly, I like that they slowed the combat down, but when it comes to the combat of the game, you could just be tanked. It doesn't matter what you are. Once the Slasher's long cleave is down, everyone just backs away from you, and then they come back and then whoop your ass. I don't think he's the strongest. He's not the weakest. Spider has lost everything Spider was good at. Spider's absolute garbage. Giants used to be good at just controlling certain areas, separating them. That was good. Now he can't do it because he can only grab one person every once in a while. And then his punches also push them away. So if they're trying to run, they get away. It's the the combat lost its identity somewhere down the line because I think they're trying to help new people get in, but at the same time, it's not rewarding as killer to kill anymore. Strangler had that feel of smoker. You drag someone away from the group, and if they weren't with a group, they died. And it made the most sense and the whole reason of playing Strangler. Now he's up front, tank DPS, he's just meant to take you on in a whole bunch of traps. It's all boggled down to playing the original Three Fiends, and you play Giant on Saw map, you play Slasher when anyone's in close quarters. And it just feels like you hope that they don't have 3 flamethrowers and a couple of mines. Truthfully, I don't even think that the game's balance has anything to do with the maps. Maps not being balanced, more or less just the interactions between the classmates and the fiends are just heavily unbalanced due to the fact that there's no tutorial to teach people how to interact. So they just make the actual interaction easier for classmates and remove tools from Fiend. Because having your power happen once every 2 minutes when that's all you really have, and you only have 1 power, I don't find that combat to be very fun or balanced.
That's why I dislike the way they're taking the balance. They're making the power, like, in quotes, stronger. Like, they deal more damage, but they increase the cooldown, which I feel takes away the identity of the individual killers. What makes them different is their powers. Like, that's why you play Strangler, is for his power. You don't play him because he's a smaller hitbox that can spam faster, I guess. That's the reason you used to play him. It's for his power. It's so unique. And then the Giant, you played him for his dash and his grab, and now it's like just a tank. That's it. He's pretty bad, and I just disagree with the way they're taking it.
But you also have to look at, like, they introduced something that was cool, which was resistances and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't list what the resistances or weaknesses are.
They don't.
B, they don't have any acid weapons craftable. So I think Giant is weak to acid, and then he had resistance to fire, and he's also the highest health enemy in the game.
I thought Slasher.
So
He's resistance to shock.
Yes.
Yeah,
Giant's resistant to
neutral to
shock.
fire. They do list also the weaknesses, like on the little side notes, but yes, I do think it should be
not
listed
all of them.
somewhere else. Yeah,
They
I don't know with that why they didn't do that.
So and then, like, they had a good idea. Strangler was resistant to all elements, and then that fell apart because they just made him too tanky, and then they removed I feel like they don't know what route they're going in, and it's
So they're trying to go on, like, all routes at once.
They're trying to experiment way too hard.
well, they have to. It's
Yeah.
kind of like
I actually enjoy how they're experimenting so much. They're, like, constantly changing the meta of the game. Something that I feel Dead by Daylight the devs of Dead by Daylight have been afraid to do for so long, which I actually respect the devs of this game. I feel
Before we move on to that, we didn't go to Marth. Marth, what did you think?
Marth.
It's all good. I'm letting you guys go before I start laying into everything.
Uh-huh.
So ultimately, with a combination of what Baefu and Tyde said, but I'm going to kind of put a little bit of sprinkles on top of this. Ultimately, the game has gone from the killers being able to be aggressive if they chose to where you're just fully defensive 100% of the time. Like
100%.
you can be aggressive against the noob teams. Don't get me wrong, but ultimately it's 100% defensive. Now, do I like this method? No, because it does feel sluggish, but it does feel better because I don't lose my Giant in 3 seconds, which is the biggest thing. But in terms of strength overall, Slasher is probably going to be the strongest for the defensive battle. Strangler is still the strongest for pickoff, but ultimately in a brute force, when you're just playing defensive and choke points and stuff like that, nothing will beat the Slasher. You've got Strangler second, Giant third, Spider somewhere like in 10th place somewhere. I don't know where she went.
Spider is currently below the father.
But ultimately, the biggest thing is I haven't played recently in the last week because I haven't had a chance to because of work. But I know Baefu's been playing with the new meta a lot more with his team. But ultimately, any killer, like if Baefu, I don't know what you've been doing, Baefu, but the way I see it is easy way to counter any killer. People that are afraid of the giant grab or the 1-2 tap from the slasher. Literally, I'm assuming you're running 2 medics now, Baefu.
Not currently, actually. Not
One,
currently. Yeah,
but
we're
one
running one right now. Yeah.
Okay, so but ultimately, you can easily just start the fight off with a tase to put the killer stuff on cooldown, go in with spells, and just beat the living daylights out of the killer. You don't even need it for its stun anymore. I actually think the taser now is 10 times stronger than what it was before.
I hate
minus the original tap.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
wait a
Original
second.
Minus
taser.
the original tap taser.
Marth.
But ultimately, because what it is because granted it's not the full cooldown, but it's still 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That 10 seconds is enough to pretty much, like on the Strangler especially, like I had a match with Baifu's group where I didn't know about the taser doing that, and I had the victory, and then it just completely turned the game around because they put my Strangler on cooldown, Baifu beat the crap out of me, and it was game over. It's like that taser can actually do a lot of damage. Now, it does feel better for Fiends because we don't get beaten up as much, but yet I don't think flamethrowers are being used as much, which they need to be used because they shred harder now.
Baefu can tell you that he's definitely using them more now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I am.
So, like, go ahead.
What are you currently running, Baefu?
Well, me and group like love testing with all sorts of different like comps and like seeing what works and what doesn't work. The medic, we can talk about the medic one because that's
we're
huge.
definitely gonna be talking
The
about
medic
medic
nerfs.
later.
Right now we've taken out one medic and we've put in a scout. So now it would be like double assault, double scout, and then a medic. Or like it's very interesting because like I really do love technician. I think it's an awesome class, and I thought the flamethrower was pretty bad before, but I've been playing with it a lot lately, and I just kind of have to change my playstyle with it. So it's kind of like I have been testing out like swapping out assault and putting in technician instead. So still have some kind of like DPS in there that can fight along with the assault, but just ranged instead of like right in his face. And especially with the medic nerfs, it kind of does seem to work out because I mean you don't need heals all the time if I'm fighting him from a range as technician. So
I feel like it makes sense.
Plus the tech can also throw in pills as needed, even though they've been nerfed.
Yes.
But that helped.
That's really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pills are still good. Turrets under smoke, still another amazing thing. Yeah, so there's still a lot of value I think in tech, even though they've neutered a lot of its stuff all over these past couple patches. But yeah.
One thing that I want to talk about for the Fiend side, though, I understand there's been a lot of concepts of like neutralizing and just, in other words, like putting the killer's cooldown with the taser and all that. I feel like those concepts are really good. The thing is that it's still, like Marth was saying, it's a very heavy like defensive playstyle. You can't afford to go out and be aggressive anymore because you're always gonna lose. You can't specifically chase someone down and get them down. Like, yeah, sure, you killed someone, but someone's gonna get the objective done. You're not gonna get your cooldown back in time. You can't chase anyone as giants anymore. And not just that, but when you're on cooldown, you're essentially just a right mouse killer. And for killers like Strangler or Giants or even Spiders sometimes, that's almost always a death sentence. And personally, I know how very out of place this might sound, but I feel Fiends right now need some sort of desperation move where it's just a get off me option. Because before, Fiends could have been bullied and they could have been just, absurdly overpowered in like under a minute with effects and all these kind of just insane strategies, especially with the Shocker when they had before with the proxy mines. But right now, the biggest issue is that they can still go up to the killer and whack on him. Like, even if the assault has no stamina, even if the assault doesn't do enough damage, flamethrower nerfs, effect nerfs, all that, it doesn't matter because even if you have all that HP, even if all the like survivor DPS tools have been nerfed, you're still you're still weak. You're still sitting there in a corner taking the beating, spamming right click because you're just being surrounded by 5 people and you don't know who to hit. There's a lot of things right now with Fiend that just feels very off and it doesn't feel fun at all because you have to play defensively. You can't afford to be aggressive. And if they try to go aggressive towards you, you have to play defensively. You can't push back. You can't try to fight back because if you do, you're probably going to get surrounded. You're going to get smoked. You're going to get shocked. You're going to get put on cooldown. And there's just so many things right now that are so bad with Fiend. And don't get me wrong, I love Fiend, but oh my lord, he's still really easy to bully, and it should never be like that. I understand that they're trying to make abilities powerful, but by making abilities powerful and putting them on slow cooldowns, you're ultimately just making them even more susceptible to being overtaken or overpowered.
And
that's Yeah, that's interesting. I want to touch on Marth's point really fast, or like what Marth was talking about, because I also really agree to where, and also Pixelated as well, to where it's like I really agree that we're all of us have been like pretty much agreeing on that, saying with the cooldowns, Fiend is a lot like way less fun than what it was before.
Yes.
And I completely agree with this, and I really at first I really didn't like how they were making Fiends like just their melee damage in general weaker, and now the Fiends cooldowns being so long, I really hated that. And yes, I understand why they want to make it much easier for newer players to get involved and stuff like that, while still making Fiends decently powerful. But ultimately, they've kind of just made a lot of things on both Survivor and Killer sides just less fun by trying to kind of quote unquote balance it. But what I do think is that with the HP pool I guess that was a nice touch. But what I do think is the meta still kind of is the same, even though things were before. Defensive play is still the route to go, and that's kind of the way it was before. And yes, you can argue being aggressive did work at times, but ultimately, how last year works fundamentally versus top level survivors, it's a time game. You have to play the time no matter what.
I can vouch for that ultimately, because it's even going against Baefu's group, for example. Even though back then it was almost impossible to play the time game most of the time.
Oh my god!
Because
it was atrocious.
But it still was the better option than playing hyper aggressive, because literally as Fiend, you get 3 or 4 kills and you get so heavily punished that you could send, like, say for example, I get 3 kills, there's still 2 survivors alive. One goes for saves, one gets 1 to 2 free objectives while you're respawning. And honestly, I think that's real. I would think they need to bring it back like they used to where as the saves start going into play, the timer gets reduced as the saves come into play. And then also, I don't know how the survivors are going to feel about this. There needs to be an actual penalty for dying for survivors in terms of scrap count.
Scrap loss.
Yes.
It's like
not a full thing.
Not
Didn't they have that?
But they had
no.
Not in the current
not recently, no. But they did at one point have that, right?
Yes.
I thought when you died, you lost your scrap.
They did. So
I don't remember that.
I didn't
like
way back in.
Yeah,
back on
beta, okay.
Discord, yeah. They had it to that point. Now, granted, I don't think they should lose everything, but they need to be able to lose at least 50%.
Yes.
So
that's interesting. That's a very interesting take. That I know a lot of big complaints is like the scrap and stuff like that, and like everyone's been talking about why don't people lose scrap and stuff as they as they die and stuff like that. And I, to a certain degree, I can kind of agree to maybe it's some, but also you have to think it's kind of like one of those just like super unfun mechanics, right? To where it's like nobody likes losing their shit or something. No one likes being CC. No one likes being slowed. It's like one of those like super unfun things. But it's definitely an interesting take on that.
The thing with that is that you can't just die and tell yourself, it's fine, I'll come back and make myself a flamethrower. Like you can't do that. Like that's just
they die with 30 scrap and they have enough to supply an army.
Because with the Fiend though, because you have to think about it, when the Fiend dies, it's highly punishable.
When the Fiend dies, there's enough time to do 2 objectives at least, depending on the map.
When it comes to what's fun, what's unfun, nothing is ever fun when it's against you. So saying but like it's unfun to die as Fiend, but I wouldn't say that we shouldn't die, be invincible. Exactly. But the point is there does have to be a penalty in some form to say that the Fiend's getting rewarded. In the current state, I can kill 4 people and they come back so fast. The value of those kills were nothing, but I need those because I need to kill everyone at least 3 times to slow them down. But that's hard enough to do. It isn't though, because
scrap is different than the respawn times and how many times you kill people, and the Fiend not gaining
what
any
I'm saying
progress
is
for kills.
That if you didn't get scrap back after I killed you, that would make a Fiend's life easier.
I agree.
Even if you came back in 0 seconds, it may not be fun, but it's also how we as Fiends have fun.
Yes,
I agree.
I agree. You go.
Yeah, I agree with Tide here. The thing is that, like I understand that getting a higher respawn timer, like the more you go on, the more you die. I understand that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, whatever. Like, you're still getting punished. The thing is that there's no initial penalty. There's no initial punishment there. So if you just die your first time, like at top level play, it's very unlikely you're gonna die because of how like it's so easy to loop or just waste the killer's cooldowns or abilities or whatever. And it's so simple to just not die. So the few times that you do die, there has to be some penalty besides, oh, I'll wait 15 seconds and whatever, I'll be back. And then, oh, he's camping my spawn, smoke it or do the objectives, we'll win anyways. It's so unrewarding. I feel that when I'm doing an execution, I feel more vulnerable than I am out there trying to guard the objective, because while I'm in this long ass animation, I could just see some dude in the background fucking power walking adrenaline with a blowtorch straight up to the gate while I'm just sitting there cleaving some dude in the head. Like, there's no punishment there. Like, yeah, I'm killing this guy, but what's gonna matter? He's gonna come back with a taser. He's gonna shock me. His 2 assaults are gonna come up to me and beat me up. There's no initial penalty that does anything to make me feel good about executing people. If anything, it's just telling myself, okay, now I can try to go harder on kills because there's less people or stuff. It's sad. It really is.
It is sad because they talked about being more for both sides being more forgiving if you die, but then they decrease survivor spawns, which I'm okay with, because then they increase the penalty each time that you die. But then they directly increase the fiend spawn times, and it's just really
sad.
Yeah, it's sad because now you have to play so defensively and protectively of your health, because you know at top level play that if you die, there's a lot of shit that's going to be done. You could have like 2 survivors left when you die, and all 5 survivors are back. They all have completely crafted up, and an objective is done completely by the time that you're back, and there's no penalty.
It's bad. Go ahead.
No,
I'll
sorry.
finish.
No.
So it's bad as a Fiend player when I am debating, do I just go in there and don't try for kills, but to weaken everybody up so when they kill me, I come back faster and then come back with a killer at full health and destroy them, compared to maybe getting 1 or 2 kills, letting them get everybody back, and then them getting an objective advance because I was on the long timer. So it's one of those situations to where it's like, it's more rewarding to not kill sometimes because you got to make sure you have your faster respawn timer.
Yeah, it's just it needs to be like it was in Discord release, where someone gets saved, your cooldown time or your respawn timer is decreased.
I agree with everything that everyone has said pretty much so far about like all this stuff, but I do want to touch on the other point, or better point, for why I don't even think that the scrap issue or survivors not even losing scrap on death is the biggest issue that fiends have for why they are like why the games are so tough for them. Where I don't think this isn't really Nightmare to where it's like, oh, you know, this person has this item, I'm just fucking dead. You know what I mean? Can't do anything about this. It's over. You know what I mean?
Failed.
It's not really, that's not really the issue, the problem. I think the biggest issues that fiends struggle with to really compete right now with like top level survivors are how easy the objectives are on all of the maps, basically, and really the fact that sometimes they're just stuck in the mud and they can't do anything without their powers or without their abilities. I think those are the biggest issues, and I think we'd be seeing a lot closer games between top level fiends and higher level survivors, even medium level survivors. I think through all like the levels of play, I think it would be a lot closer if fiends had those things, and if some of the like objectives got reworked and were actually much more difficult. Because there's times like the biggest ones, as good of a map Gym is, right?
Yeah.
For fiends, right? As good as it is, nothing feels worse than they finish the crank and they get the first fuel instantaneously. I mean, it's free. It's absolutely stupid. Yeah.
Who decided to put that fuel there?
Yeah.
Who the fuck put that fuel
we
there?
all agree
it's like
with that.
right next to the generator.
But not only that, then you have once you get out of the underground area, the top fuels. There's 2 fuels that spawn right next to the place where you put the fuel in.
The bathroom.
Why are those there? Those are things that are game changing for fiends that like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do there? You know what I mean? Like they get that within the 30 seconds that I'm dead. Like those are changes that would be completely different if, you know, starters had to walk all the way down to somewhere like super far, grab the fuel and bring it all the way back, and the fiends actually have a chance to defend the objective and actually, you know, do that. Also, though, the problem is that they can't even apply pressure that much because their cooldowns are so long. I mean, these are like the real concerning problems that make, you know, last year Fiends so I guess not fun right now. I personally think I think it would be a lot different if those were changed. Not even the fact, because I think Fiends have the ability to combat all of the shit that survivors can build and craft constantly. I really think they do, or that at least compete with it. Like maybe
Except
survivors have a
smokes.
slight advantage.
Except for
Yes,
smokes. They need to
maybe
rework
smokes need to be
smokes.
touched. Yes, but other than that, I really think there's a lot of counterplay to all of the fucking items for top level fiends. Just those other things that make it really
The
unbalanced.
two that
Because
I
I think-
think need to be completely reworked are I think they need to rework the taser again, or the shocker. It needs to go back to what it was, where it was a stun and not a cooldown increase. And then the other one is I really do think they need to increase smokes. I saw a really good suggestion, I thought, on the last year Discord, where instead of being something where the fiend just literally just can't do anything, it's a slowdown to the fiend. They get slowed down, and it does acid damage to them.
Ooh.
And you crouch underneath it to avoid the acid damage, but you can also stand up and beat the shit out of them if you want to. But it's no longer, oh, look at me, I have a smoke, I get a free objective /save. It's so infuriating when you're like, okay, finally, I got it down to one person, I can finally win this game, and then they just like, nope, fuck you, I have a smoke, and then they get 3 people. And then you're just screwed in the end.
Anything in this game should not have an ability where it's instantly nullifying one other player's ability to play the game, because
agree.
it's bad. That's just bad game design. You can't tell someone, hey, this guy probably wasted like 5 minutes wandering around corridors picking at boxes, and now he gets the ability to just shut you down for a whole minute. Like that's not fun. No one's having fun there. There's no skill in anything. It's just very counterintuitive to what last year should be.
It's all about the interaction between the fiends and the survivors, and by
and there are no interactions when all you do is hold right click and craft something and then be like, oh, here you go, bro. You're like 5 seconds of stunning. Go fuck yourself. I'm gonna go rescue someone while my buddy's doing.
There is something I have noticed about after the most recent patch. I'm pretty sure there's a glitch, but every once in a while, if you are still attempting to swing while you are in smoke as fiend, you can sometimes swing through it.
Oh yeah, spamming attack in the smoke will eventually put one out for you. I've seen it too.
It's controversial, but
that's a bug though. That's getting
yeah.
fixed. That's much different.
Yeah.
Like fiends, obviously the same thing for survivors shouldn't be able to hit the smoke. Fiends shouldn't be able to hit the smoke. It's a big problem. Every fiend does it. I mean, it just happens, and it's like they shouldn't be able to move, do anything at all. But another interesting thing, since we are on the topic of smokes, is how does everyone, I especially want to get all the fiend players' perspectives, is how does everyone feel about the gas mask being added into the game for
I
medic?
swear to fucking God, I'm actually gonna kill someone.
So basically like the smoking and objectives being pushed as an actual tactic rather than a bug or whatever we call it. What do you guys think?
I think that pushing out the gas mask for medics would be a good idea if they would make the change to smoke where it's an acid thing, because then what you can do is the fiends slowed down, they're taking acid damage, now you give a gas mask to an assault or some shit, they go in and beat the shit and they're not taking the acid damage. That would be a good change, but the fact now that you can be like, oh, you know what, you can't play the game, but I can, and I'm just gonna devastate you in this time that I have.
With that smoke idea, I agree that the gas mask is a good implementation. It's really good to synergize with other items. I like that idea, but right now having a gas mask with this absolutely area nullifying smoke bomb is just fucking terrible, dude. You should nothing. I'm gonna keep repeating myself because of how bad it is, but nothing in this game should be just an instant nullification to someone's ability to play. It's bad. It's just simply bad. I'm not gonna repeat myself a lot.
Honestly, I would only see the gas mask should only work against the traps, not the actual smoke bomb. Myself, personally.
Understandable.
I can agree with that for the way
What do
the
you
smoke
think?
is right now.
Small items don't bother me. The smoke's annoying, but in some cases, like, again, game's really lost its identity. I don't want to fix a thing that's overall just not working. The scout makes sense with adrenaline, smoke, and shotgun. Smokes to get objectives that are heavily defended. I think they even dropped the time on the fiends in the smoke so that the fiend could potentially stop some of the interactions as long as he's right next to it. So even that right there is pretty good. You just have to remember that even at a high level skill play, the game's struggling at a low level to even bring anyone in. and without something like a smoke to stop a person who's standing there because the other 4 members of your team don't know what the hell they're doing, it was the one thing that saved me playing solo with Scout. Without it, I have nothing. There's no way I could get past especially on Bell Tower right next to that crane, and he's just standing there sitting on side, and my 4 allies thumbs up their ass. What do I do as a solo player? Sure, as a team, it's very annoying, but the point of the 4 classes is that they're supposed to introduce something specific. One for rushing objectives, though they shouldn't be guaranteed. Scout's supposed to be there to get the stuff done.
Yeah.
So I personally don't care they're adding a smoke or a gas mask, because honestly, flashlight for medics dumb as shit. I don't even know. But and then you also have to just look, the game, like I said, has lost its identity. It should be about collecting scrap to defend yourself from the Fiend while you do objectives. But currently, it's the Fiend who's just trying to sit there and defend is one thing while you collect scrap to just beat the shit out of them. And hell, when you said you could counter everything, I beyond heavily disagree. I've had scrub lords, actually fight back when I've had them separated without weapons, and I've taken heavy damage from just pipes. And if you get smoked, then the turrets just shoot you from the other side, and that's annoying, but that's a fair play to disarm me and hurt me. And though, yes, removing my ability to play because of a stun is unfeasible, it would be feasible if the Fiends had the ability to kill, but they slowed the gameplay down for the new set cycle of the game needs to find its identity of how it's supposed to play. If I play Payday 2, everything comes together and makes sense as to what I'm supposed to do. The objectives in that game can be also randomized, but in a way where everything flows and feels fun for everyone. Even Dead by Daylight fixed things that were annoying from campers. They now allow people to have their exhaustion perk back, which honestly I felt that was the dumbest thing, and still is, because it's the safest cushion. It makes that play exploitable for teams. But it's also, you have to look at the solo players. Though, yes, teams will always dominate, they need to have something for the Fiend to handle teams, but they need something for players who are by themselves to make a decision that gives them a chance. And having people respawn at a ridiculously low rate is...
I wanted... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, no.
Well, no, I was wanting to say something because you were talking about turrets. There's one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, because sadly she doesn't get played that much in regards to the Spider. A lot of technicians like throwing their turrets on the gym on top of the pads.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this
Spider.
The Spider
can get 'em,
not all of them.
What?
If they put them into the right spot on those pads, the Spider does not get an interaction with the turret.
It's because the spiders at a
short.
crouch level,
Yeah.
so it's short. The placements of turrets, it's also controversial. But one of the things, when they did the first rework and pushed it out when Strangler was a god, one of the things that I hated was the Fiend Shield. I like the idea of getting my health back, but I also don't like the idea of, an individual can no longer hurt me ever. Because if he's by himself, trying to make that last ditch effort to save your ally by yourself, it was moot. Because now, if technician, turret can't break through that shield unless the killer stands there like a moron. Turret's just a joke now when the shield is up. Stuff like that. I think they had a right idea when they did the rework, but certain things just were too wide of a swing.
It's situational. If you're the last person, there's nothing you can do. It's obviously it's multiple things. Maybe you have an item to be able to deal with the shield. You literally can punch the killer shield out if you needed to. But
I threw a Molotov at a spider with a max shield. It broke the shield.
Yeah,
that's all it did. It was broke. So Molotov 14 scrap did no damage. Spider disappeared.
Yes, but
Molotov.
then
I mean, that's
the
like
s-
that's like a what? That's like an 80 HP shield though. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's still really good damage. I mean, yeah, it's only the shield, but like, I mean,
The
you don't want
shield-
it to be that strong to where it's doing the entire killer shield and more damage.
The
But I
shield-
understand what you're saying.
Do you see the value though? Do you see that like crafting a single item as a single player has no impact?
That's
No,
By
it
your
does.
Single
It
player.
does.
It
It
does.
Single player
forces-
though.
Okay,
In a team game, there's a single
player. Right. So by yourself, I broke a shield with a Molotov. 14 scrap didn't deal any damage. You say it's damage, it's not. All they have to do is disappear and get their shield back, and it's no damage.
it
When it
takes
used
time.
to be.
It takes a
Yeah.
lot of time for the shield to regen.
Now
takes
it
8
does,
seconds
and
for it to
that's-
start, and then it's like 3 health per second.
Yeah, but they also reduced all the Fiend's health at the time. What I'm trying to say is back when it first came out
Yeah.
was when they went in the right direction of slowing the game down. What I'm saying is the introduction of the shield kind
Yes.
of messed quite a few things up because now it changes your perspective on how you fight things.
Yes,
Example,
I
like
can
not even a
understand that.
turret can do things. And again, if you're by yourself with a powerful weapon that you crafted with scrap, Molotov, pipe bomb, even having all of that value of that scrap go away and do nothing by itself, it then shows when 5 people do it, and it's always like kind of a guaranteed kill.
Mm-hmm.
There's your issue.
Okay,
You
well-
have a game that's too focused on teamwork, but also only plays for teamwork. It doesn't allow individual input from a classmate to make a difference, but it allows a team to dominate. Whereas
Tyde's gotta-
whereas
My bad.
Fiend has to hope they don't work together, and if they don't, he can pick them off and do whatever. And originally, you were able to force people away from each other back in Nightmare, like Strangler. Drag them out,
Yeah.
trap them, walk around the corner, disappear, and then appear on the other side, drag another person. There was a lot more depth to
Yes.
breaking a team apart than there is now, because as Marth and everyone has said, it's just defensive play against
I gotta-
5.
What
I
they've
gotta agree
done
with-
with the traps,
ahead.
one sec. What they've done with the traps, it's such a short time that they're trapped. It feels like it's like 5 seconds at the most.
It
that
is
you're-
5. It is 5.
That is just horrendous. Like, are you kidding me? First, I can understand adding the thing where if you take
Damage
40,
cap?
yeah, damage cap. That I can understand that. It's not fun to get stuck in a trap and then you're just dead, 0 for 100 health to 0. I understand that, but now you barely have enough time. If your giant throws someone into a trap, you literally barely have enough time to like hit them if you threw them decently far away.
I'm trying to
Um,
understand here
no.
because, like, sorry, you go Pixelate. My bad. You want
Yeah.
to talk?
One thing that I want to add on to Tyde's thing, because this is something that's been very much on my mind, but I've been afraid to say it because I'm aware how powerful it could be if not finely tuned. But Tyde's right when it's too focused on teamwork, because I'm aware that the game is about teamwork, but there's a lot of situations that just push people away, especially solo players or new players. That's just so unfortunate because, I mean,
yes.
in this game, you cannot be self-sufficient. Like, no matter how good you are, no matter how skilled you are at moving, at fighting, at doing anything, you can't be good yourself. And that sucks because, I mean, for a lot of solo players, I mean, they see Assault as this icon of, okay, I'm going to go fight the killer. I'll make sure to take him down or whatever. They get hurt. They get beat up a bit. They back up. They're smart about it, right? But it doesn't matter how smart about it they are. They can't go back in unless they have a medic that knows what they're doing and that knows how to heal others. That Assault alone can't do anything because he can't heal himself. He's just weak. If he goes in, he's going to die in 1 to 2 hits. And it's sad because, well, I mean, seriously, if you're alone, you can't do anything no matter how good you are. If you're a scout, you can make a shotgun that pops a shield like once. Okay, you have to despawn and just regenerate it back.
Mhm.
As a medic, you have almost no means of fighting back besides a pipe bomb, and even then, you'll probably just kill yourself with it. The assaults are useless in solo play because if you don't have a medic that knows to go around healing the assaults, you're just gonna sit back with your pipe in your hand, thinking to yourself, when's a good time to go in and get a single hit in before I run out of stamina and die? And as technician and scout are the most fun classes for solo players because of how self-sufficient they are. They're the only classes
Mhm.
that offer DPS, self-healing, and capabilities where it's just like they can get heat off them or they can get away with doing almost anything. Technicians have the ability to put down a turret, walk away. They can heal themselves. They have a flamethrower for range, a proximity mine for traps or like setups or whatever. Scouts can back off the killer because they know where the killer's at. They can flash him to stun him and get some time to walk away. Adrenaline for healing and infinite stamina, again, to run away. And the shotgun, the shotgun is a shotgun. I don't need to tell you how good that thing is. But all in all, Medic and Assault are very unfun to play right now because they aren't self-sufficient. Medic, I understand, is not a DPS, but the fact that the Medic can only do so much for itself besides heal and run away or rely on others is so sad. And the same thing goes for the Assault. The Assault relies on the Medic because if the Assault isn't getting healed, the Assault can't move in. Even with helmets, it's not enough health to go in and like successfully get a hit in or two.
It's like
You're gonna get bent over and just fuck, dude.
Yeah.
You can't do much.
both medic and it's annoying because both medic and assault rely on each other so heavily, while scout and technician are more of a solo class.
And I like that idea. I like the fact that they're a synergizing class that together they're powerful. But with the stamina changes, the heal changes, it's sad and it's unbearable to play assault or medic in solo queues because you can't do anything for yourself. As medic, you can't do anything besides heal, and as assault, once you're at 30 health, you can't do.
Yeah.
It's
These are-
honestly.
These are very controversial topics.
I'm aware.
because
I'm aware.
Because
I'm
as
aware.
we're talking about survivors or certain things, survivors being too strong, now we're also talking about how it's too weak in solo play.
That's why I
And
was afraid
and
of
I
talking about
understand-
this.
And I understand everyone's point. Sorry, you want to say something?
Well, yeah, well, more or less to that, it's we do it because true balance doesn't come from both being equally strong. It just comes from everyone having an opportunity to make a decision that makes impact on gameplay. So yes, even though classmates are strong, it doesn't mean that they only need nerfs. They are, they need to be brought up in a way that allows them to still make decisions, and fiends have to make decisions. Left 4 Dead, probably one of the best examples I can give, is a game that allows you to work as a team. But if you have someone who's not pulling their weight, it's no big deal. Your skill can make a difference. And if 3 of your allies are absolute garbage, I have seen pro players take on 4 zombies, not get smoked, handle a jockey, get through everything. He made impressive, fun plays and got his team back. In last year, you're by yourself, your 4 allies have died like idiots, and you're against a strangler. You're fucked. There's no decision making that can save you unless the fiend just absolutely fucks up a chain grab and has a 2-minute cooldown. Or then he could just probably chase you the rest of the time. That's boring as fuck. But the point is, when we talk about balance, the idea is not to just focus on who needs a nerf, who needs a buff, but to make sure everybody can make decisions that matter. And that's why I brought up the Molotov earlier. I made a decision as a solo player that fire would kill the shit out of the spider, or at least get him off me. I burned him, he walked away, came back full health, and I had to 1v1 him with a pipe because I couldn't collect 14 scrap, because if a fiend follows you, he should be trapping every single scrap you can grab, and you're just fucked. So again, solo play to team play. I'm not always going to have a survive with friends team, and I don't want to, because then I don't ever play this game, which I've drastically stopped doing, because I don't want to rely on 4 people to come and play with me to have a good time. I have to be able to have a fun time by myself. Else I'm going to go play Monster Hunter, Warcraft 3, anything else that I can have fun by myself.
I feel like that's why I gravitate towards Fiend, or it usually.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, as Fiend, I need classmates as much as they need me. And if they're quitting or not having fun, I mean, if I dominate anybody, they just quit the game.
Just leave immediately.
Hold on, let me finish my point from earlier really fast, because I understand where you're coming from, but I also don't agree, because I mean, this is how the game just works, to where it's like, if you shouldn't be able to carry a game because you yourself are good, but what if the Fiend's good? So what? The rest of your team is bad, and therefore you should just be able to carry? Like, no, that's I don't agree with that. I don't think that's fair.
If you are a
hold on. I'm still okay. I do think, though, I understand what you're saying, and I do think solo is like one of those things to where it's like, oh, okay, the rest of my team has no idea what they're doing. How is this fair to me? You know what I mean? Where the Fiend knows what he's doing and I can do absolutely nothing. And that is a problem that needs to be addressed, to where, and they are going to address that with, some kind of an MMR system that they're working on, to put yourself with players to where, yeah, you may not know each other. Maybe your communication isn't as good as it would be in a full squad, but at least you guys have a chance because you're placed with similar people who know what they're doing. That is fair. But to a fiend, it's like, how is that fair to where, okay, one person understands what they're doing and the rest of the team is completely new, but therefore you're actually able to compete with a fiend who knows what they're doing only because one person on your team knows what they're doing. That does not sound like that's balanced at all. I mean, it should be.
I didn't say a one classmate can 1v1 a killer. I said
No,
you could make a decision that could make a difference in gameplay. So if there's a play, well, not really.
I disagree though. I think that you can.
So
if you play Assault and Medic.
Okay, if you're Medic, let's do that. You're Medic, I'm Strangler. I'm full life Strangler. You're by yourself.
Okay. All of your situations that you've suggested though are when you're alone and by yourself. I'm saying that in order to beat fiends, you need to not be in that situation already from the get-go. You need to be talking to your team and saying, hey guys, we need to be grouped so that way we know it's Strangler and we need to come at Strangler in a different angle from where we would go at like a Giant or a Slasher to where we know we can split up. That's how you fight Strangler.
Yes.
If you know he is Strangler, you group up. If you know it's Giant or Slasher, you say, okay guys, we can split up and go for scrap. This is how it is. If you are already in that 1v1 situation where you're alone versus Strangler, you lose. That's
then
how the game
Why don't we
works.
just end the game when one's classmate remains?
Okay, I mean that would be boring, and there's still a chance he has to find the last survivor. Maybe he doesn't know where they are. Maybe he hid and got one of the rescue doors, or was on the rescue door while the fiend was killing the other classmate that was still alive. There's all sorts of different situations. You can't just say, the last survivor. It's just over. I can't do anything. There's all sorts of variables to this. I don't. There's all sorts of variables.
Wait, everybody, calm down. We're getting a little.
So it's coming to the point where. I'm saying by myself. You're right. I play solo only. I don't play with friends anymore just because everyone's already left. They're done playing because they don't have fun by themselves. If you don't agree, that's fine. But look at the numbers of the game.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree.
It's dying.
Yes, okay. No, I'm not going to argue on that at all.
But is it because the team plays too good, or is it because the individual experience is absolute garbage?
I feel
it's both. I think the survivors need to adapt. I mean, that's the other problem is that people are not willing right now to adapt, and there's no tutorial in them to teach them right off the bat, hey, you don't actually have to interact with the killer, you can run away. And they've made that very strong in this recent patch, in these couple of recent patches, to where you don't have to interact with the killer, you can just run away and loop him for pretty much as long as you want, barring Strangler. But there's other items to help you even when the Strangler chains you, like smoke grenades and tasers and stuff like that, blinds. And it's like there's new players don't know what to do right off the bat, and they get put into a game where versus people like Marth, like Tide, like all of us, okay? They get into a game with us and they get absolutely, stomped, and they go, well, that wasn't fun, because they haven't learned yet. They haven't adapted, and they're not taking the time to actually adapt and, take some time to, okay, I lost, you know what I mean? And just like in Dead by Daylight, you lose your first couple games, you keep playing and you get better. This is something that needs to happen in last year. Now, last year is very different than Dead by Daylight. You can't just loop the killer the whole time. When everyone else does gens, and you easily get out within, 10 minutes or less. This game heavily requires for you guys to, group up, fight the killer together. It much more teamwork, and it's a much more difficult game. So, it's to learn as well, but that's just how the game works.
I understand, but I had the exact same mindset back in Death Garden, and Death Garden's gone now because it died. I had the exact same mindset.
Yes.
I took a step back from that mindset, but let me finish one point. I had that mindset because I felt the same way. People just didn't learn. Death Garden also didn't have a tutorial. Nobody knew. Nobody wanted to learn. So I took a step back and I looked at my wife and her friends play games, and Death Garden was one of them. It was not because they refused to adapt. It's just the experience doesn't allow them to make the decisions they can in any other game to make a difference. So though, yes, in a 1v1 situation, giving that one person the power to make a decision that makes a difference against the one strong person, it makes all the difference, because it makes the lesser, weaker person feel like they've contributed more, and it gives a very, very positive feedback. And the reason all my friends have left is because when they play and it's by themselves, they literally cannot do anything, because even if they tell everybody in typing chat and voice chat and they try to assist where they can, not everyone's going to listen. It's 5 different strangers. Nobody's going to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's a game that focuses too much on team play. And if you're going to say that's the way it is, that's the way Death Garden was, and look at where it's at. That was one of my favorite games.
I understand where you're both coming from here. Tide, I agree with you in the fact that the game is too focused on team play, where yes, it should be focused on team play, like Death Garden, like Dead by Daylight, but it's too far where I agree where you don't have the chance to feel like you make a difference all the time, but you also can't be where, okay, I'm going to
I
make
think
it.
people are misinterpreting what I mean by just a decision.
I
Yeah.
what
So
yeah.
like you guys are thinking I want one person to be so strong they can handle a
No,
fiend.
no, not
No,
that.
no,
Okay.
no,
All right,
no,
just
no.
making
I understand what you're saying. I just think the Death Guard and Last Year comparison. They're very different games. I really don't like to compare them too much, but I understand to where teamwork is too heavy. But I really don't think it's that. I personally really do think people because like I use as an example, like some of my friends, sometimes they get into a game with Marth, right? For example, and there's only two of them, right, versus Marth, and yeah, they may not win the game, and that's okay, but they make it decently far, and because they understand what they're doing, you know what I mean, and they understand they can make those impactful changes, even if it's just two of them together,
But two.
and yeah, two, and okay, so maybe not one, but like, and that may be something that we can address later, but I don't even think even as one, it's like you shouldn't be
Two.
able to really fully carry a whole game just because
Not
you
carry.
understand,
Not
or not
carry.
even,
Not
but
carry.
even
a
make it
dis-
super.
There is
No, no,
There
no,
are
no.
there are
there's-
there are
Hey,
decisions.
let's listen to Marth. Marth, what were you saying?
there is only one class that can make those plays, and that's scout.
One.
Scout.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're right.
With smoke.
So if you are a solo player that's wanting that to do that, you have to be a scout.
And if
Any-
you're not, you're
Then you're screwed.
They need
And-
to balance a lot of the classes around Scout, where it's more of a jack of all trades. Even though it is focused a lot on getting objectives done,
It's too
each
strong.
class. Yes, I understand, but each class needs to be self-sufficient in some way, where you can do something. Where I feel right now every class is a heal except for Assault. I feel one of Assault's craftables needs to be switched to some sort of small heal, maybe like like bandages or something.
Just call it like an energy bar or
Yeah.
Protein bar. Yes.
You know what? No. You know what? Even no. To also incorporate the idea of needing to craft that, maybe you can also give you like a stamina boost to like help you fight the killer.
Yes.
Make it.
Where
So your guys' ideas are all the classes have some kind of utility tools to be able to survive in solo easier, not relying on teammates.
yes,
Not
but
well,
just to
then
be
also
versatile.
versatile, but not be something where, because what would happen is you then take the strongest parts of each class and you bring them down a bit, but take the weaker parts and bring them up, so you have a much better well-rounded class that can be by itself and can do things, but
Got.
it's not like Assault where you are just fucked if you don't have a medic with you.
I think the biggest issue I've seen, and I'm noticing this right now as we're talking, is that Scout seems to be the biggest problem in the meta, not because Scout is alone, like it's too powerful or whatever. No, the problem with Scout is that it gives such an example of what the game should not be. You shouldn't be able to be on your own, stunning the killer, flashing him, shooting him, running away, getting away from any situation possible because that's your class or that's how you're supposed to be played or whatever. That alone gives a bad message to players. And all in all, last year does not emphasize on the need for team play. I'm aware that that's how you play the game, but there is no emphasis on team play. The whole idea, I mean, for God's sakes, when you get into randoms, the first thing people do is split up and look for scrap in other
Yes.
places. What we need is some sort of I don't know, something to just get the idea into our heads that we can't be on our own. I'm aware that Scout is very good as a jack of all trades and all alone, but the fact that he is that gives a very bad idea of what the game is and should be, because there's been many games where it's like, okay, you take down the assault, you kill the medics, you take out the technicians, you're gonna win, but that single scout is gonna drag the game out forever, or it's gonna smoke you at a rescue door and get like 3 teammates out of there. It's you can't be having that happen. not just that, but all in all, there has to be something to reward players to stick together, because when you're sticking together, you feel like you're losing because everyone else is picking out these scrap boxes. Scrap is so scattered sparsely that sticking together feels like a bad option because everyone's just picking away at scrap and no one has anything to craft. So you all just end up with a mix of high yet medium and low scrap, but not enough to actually craft something. It's
I
very
like
bad.
that
And
idea.
Yeah.
one thing that I was thinking about is having people together will cause scrap to be shared, maybe like by a
that's
quarter or
something
half.
I thought they would do, but they haven't done. I thought it was going to be like with on the re-release. I thought they were going to
Yeah.
have something where you are all huddled around one scrap box. Let's say the scrap box has 4 in it. Everyone gets 2.
Yeah, and it's a really great idea because right now all everyone does is rush down individual
Yes.
hallways and split up to get scrap. And then if the killer chases one person, everyone else is getting so much scrap because they're all alone. They're going to areas where they know no one else is going, and they get 20 to 30 scrap. They gear themselves up, and by the time they're together, the fiend's already, because that one person that is weak and looped to the killer gave everyone enough time to buff themselves.
Yes, but then I understand what you mean about Scout being overpowered right now, and I do agree. I don't like where Scout is, but Scout is the most self-sufficient class. I feel if we try to get everything to be self-sufficient slightly, what would happen? Let's say we make the smoke change where it's now acid damage and it's not the stun thing. Let's say it still would be a slow. You could probably make it a bigger area too. Let's say we change. I had an idea for adrenaline where every time you use it, you lose 5 max health. Where it's not a thing where, oh, I'm at 5 health. I'm just gonna adrenaline myself back to full and just literally unlimited stamina forever. It's, oh, I now have to make the choice. Do I want the unlimited stamina and uh, extra health at the moment? But then I do have to face the consequences of I've just used adrenaline. Now I'm a little weaker. It's not massive, but then that would bring Scout down. It still would be pretty self-sufficient. We then bring the other class up, and now, like Tyde said, each class has a choices to make that they can work together and be stronger, but they also do have the chance that if they are alone, that they can make a difference.
I
It's
would need
not
to see examples of these utility items that everyone's talking about, because like we're all talking about like these utility items and it's like this is nice and all, like in theory if like every class could actually do stuff on their own, but like all this does is going to make all these items even stronger when they're all put together in a team, which is we just how we don't want. So it's kind of like it's kind of counterintuitive, but I understand what everyone's saying, and I do partially agree that when you are alone on your own, it does suck. You definitely feel like you can't do as much, but it's also like one of those things where it's like you need to rely at least on a few other players in the game to know what you're doing, and if they don't, it's just the way it is. It sucks.
Well,
I mean,
I don't even use items to beat fiends these days myself.
Yeah,
I send
just
the
builds.
scrubs to go die, and I
Yep.
just run the objective myself.
Yep.
I don't need items. It's not about making classes too powerful. If an item becomes too powerful, you make a value adjustment. But this is talking about core identity of a game. So
Yeah.
yes, if you don't, the game doesn't have one right now. So yes, weapons are really strong because they're just arbitrarily strong. And if they change the value to be arbitrarily weak, the pendulum swings in the other side. Like when they gave Strangler all resistances, more health, he was unstoppable with his damn shield. I could not be touched anymore, and they hot fixed it one day later. But values are intrinsic, but creating ideas to find an identity of how the game should be played. Everyone's talking about this is how it should be. No one's agreeing to how it really should be. I mean, is it a team game where one person cannot do much by themselves, where all 5 people must always work together? If that is, I don't see this pushing very far, just because, again, it doesn't allow someone by themselves to play the game. I don't know if you guys heard of GTFO. Currently, they're having that issue. You can't play that by yourself. They don't even have a matchmaking system.
Yeah.
And that game, as far as I know, is not doing amazing. But it's also like just one of those issues of forcing you to have friends is not an identity for a game to grow on its own.
Interesting point, Marth. What was the point that you want to talk about before?
Ultimately, the biggest thing is even though I know it's a different completely game genre, but like even high competitive team games where you can even use CS:GO, where it's a 5v5. Granted, the one player should not carry the whole team to victory against good people, but a player can make a choice to where it can give a little bit of that tilt to the one side. The thing is they need to be a little bit of utility added to the survivors to make it more fun, but in return it gives the fiend back some of their speed.
Yes, give.
Hang on.
Well,
Can I speak
yeah,
about
sorry,
that too?
Sure.
Go ahead.
My bad. This is something that I've been trying to say for the longest time ever. Fiends right now, the reason they're so unfun too is because they have nowhere to grow. You spawn in with a set ability, set amount of health, set speed, damage, everything. You can't grow from there. Survivors can change their speed, their stamina, their strength, all because they have spells, craftables, teamwork. They have so many synergies. Yet killers, you go in and choose a killer with the idea of, how do I want to approach this? Not, which killer can I choose that I know I can use X spell or X ability to increase my chances of getting better because I know how to play this killer better. No, it's always just going to be for killer. All right, I'm slasher. Let me hold shift towards someone. If they're running too far away, I'll turn around towards the objective and I'll just, shoo other people away. As strangler, this dude's all alone. Let me hook him and just slap him a bit so he can go ahead and die and just pick him off one by one. But you can't. There's nowhere to grow. There's just a set play style, and you're doomed to that killer until you end up dying, where you get to choose someone again to play a single play style for more than like 5 minutes. For survivors, not everyone has to be a DPS or a medic or a objective focused class. With the introduction to spells and the fact that craftables are a thing that you could share with people, anyone can do almost anything now. You can give an assault an adrenaline. If that assault has power walker, well, he's immediately the fastest being on the planet. He can just do the objective in under 5 seconds. If the medic wants to go ahead and be a damage powerhouse, he can go ahead and pop his fucking carpet bomb or whatever and just start tossing bombs like no one's business. And if the scout wants to be annoying, he could just pop what's it called, human tank and iron rubber, just sit in front of the killer's face and be like, yeah, hit me, dumbass. See how many times you get hurt.
Well, that was a flaw for them to release progression only on one side, which they're going to rectify in chapter 2 whenever that decides to come out.
Yeah,
that was just
they need to come out with the fiend web so badly.
Because fiends are so not fun to play right now because you can't grow. No matter how good you are, you have nowhere to grow. Survivors, you have to play based on their mistakes. If they make a mistake, you have to ride on that, because if they keep on crafting and they keep on getting better and they keep on recharging their spells, you're gonna have no choice but just sit there and get bent.
Well, yeah, that and just the lack of content. I mean, like, they changed the game to be this card game where you create a deck of fiends. You only have 4 to choose from. It's not very.
Not really a deck, yeah.
Everything in this game just feels incomplete. The identity of combat, the gameplay loop, the whole story of the whole thing, everything just it's kind of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still starting off. I mean, it's not like I understand that it's lacking a lot of content, and and they're working on it. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff they have planned, but it's like we can't. To a certain degree, we could say yes. A lot of it does feel like there's a lot of stuff missing, but it's like we gotta ease up on them a little bit. Like, it's not like they're not working on a ton of stuff, and the Fiend Arcanum is planned before Chapter 2 to come.
Okay.
Let me ask.
Yeah,
it's
one more
it's
thing
been
before
over
we go to our final topic. Yeah, Tide.
It's been over a year.
Yeah, it has.
Like, yes, they're making changes, they're fixing things, but it's been over a year and we have one new killer and sure one fiend. We really don't. We still don't have a complete game.
As much as I hate saying this, because I know it's a very weak justification, the thing is, this is the truth, is that they spent all this time developing a way to work with Steam and Discord to give everyone their Steam keys for free, and that was the whole development process that took over a year. And I'm aware of how bad that is, but that's just the sad truth. Like, right now, we essentially, throughout the history of last year, there was no actual, I guess, development and increase in content from the Nightmare to After Dark. There was only a pause in where he said, "Hey, this platform kind of sucked and it died. Here you go. Here's all your Steam keys. Also, here's a free killer and some new maps and reworks."
Okay, so I understand where we're going with this. We are about 10 minutes over. We're going to one more topic. We already started going into this. It's how do we feel that the dev team is performing? Obviously, they made a mistake releasing the game on Discord, and it caused a lot of issues. They were releasing content, but then they realized the platform was dying, and then they obviously had to go through the thing where they issues with Steam keys. It took them until December to release the game, but at least my opinion, I feel like the devs team is trying their best here because for a while they were doing weekly patches, now they're doing bi-weekly patches, still sometimes weekly patches. I feel like we're not giving the dev team enough credit, but I do understand where Tide is coming from, and it's not much has been done in a year, but
What about the false advertising on sales?
What do you mean?
The bundle packs you get, the numbers are false.
What?
Has no
What
one
do you
looked
mean?
that up? Oh, so you guys don't know.
Hold up.
Weren't
If you
they
go to
just
the, if you
wrong?
go into the, well, they're wrong. Well, so it's illegal technically what they're doing. And I don't think it's intentional, but they're using algorithm to put bundles together for individual people. The total value that's listed on that bundle is not a proper value. So it's an inflated number to show that, oh, hey, look, these 3 items are total this much and it's 50% off. That's not the case. That number is wrong, and so the 50% off is wrong. You still get like a sale, but it's usually 10 or 15% off the
Welcome to marketing in 2020.
but it's illegal. Fallout 76 just lost a class action lawsuit on this.
I think the biggest issue is that there's no monetary value given to the cards. The only value you have to the cards are the cards themselves needed to purchase it. So
but that is the value. So then you would take how much those cards are worth, and that card, you can't just say this card has no monetary value, but also sell it for a card value, because that means I can purchase that card for like $5 if I buy a certain pack, right? That gives that card value, and that's what the value of that card is. You can mathematically just put a calculator and put it up there. What you cannot do is say that this bundle is worth an amount. It's not. Say it's 50% off and sell it. Fallout 76 did the exact same thing, and it backfired bad.
I'm checking that out right now. Yeah, it's correct. The values are off.
Yep.
Yes, I actually brought that up to Brother Justin, and the last message I got was, we'll look into it, and I haven't heard from him. It's been like 2 weeks, or ever since the thing came out. I noticed this day one because I'm very particular about verifying sales worth. So saying that I don't give him enough credit, this move with this cash shop, it severed a little bit of my trust just because of how that's set up. Because I get marketing 101, I get how businesses push some things. I don't even mind the cash shop the way it is.
Yeah.
But a false number on a sale, that rubs me the wrong way.
And that's without mentioning the fact that they if you want to say, quote unquote, shadow nerfed the drop rate for cards when they dropped, because there was no mention of it in the announcements or patch notes. They did not
And they
say
nerfed
anything
it to
about
350 at max, which was
They had no mention of that anywhere before the patch. We all found out simultaneously when that patch.
Everyone
that was
furious.
Extremely scummy. Yeah, extremely scummy.
So I understand they need money, like, for development. I get it, but like, how do I feel the devs have done? I feel they are trying. I don't feel like they're goofing off, but there are certain areas that scare me about the progress of the game. When they did their first dev stream, they were taking questions, and I asked, if Chapter 2 is going to be free, how do you intend to keep your how do you intend to get revenue? Are you going to make skins and cash out? Got completely ignored. And so now we finally got the answer, but it's down a route of this is not a free-to-play game, but it's using free-to-play currency, and this is one of the most shunned, like, in the industry ways to do. Jim Sterling does it all the time. Fee to pay game. You buy a game full price, and then you have to pay more to play, to get the stuff inside it. In free weekend, the game actually did okay. It got
the game did
quite a
very
good,
well in free weekend.
Amazing. Yeah.
and they have a fucking free to play cash shop in it. Why didn't we just go free? And then everyone who bought the game, give them like $30 worth of gemstones to buy the things. It's
That
just
sounds good.
that part of thing going down the line is that's how I feel. There are things that they're being communicative, but it's a very fragile relationship, and we're only fed certain bits. Like when we lost our first community manager, to terms of like talking to us and everything, they just went dark, and they didn't have to. I know they didn't. The excuse they said of like, oh, contract. I know that contract didn't say, they couldn't say, hey, we're going to be working on this. We'll be back, guys. They could have said something, and so
very much was. I left the game for a very long time after they're probably about a week after the recent thing when they had just gone completely dark, and it 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 made me happy when they came back finally in December, but they still haven't earned my trust, and I don't think they've earned very many people's trust. Trust is very, very hard to earn. It's very easy to lose. I do feel like they need to work on a lot of things, but they are definitely trying.
they're trying.
Yeah.
They're trying. It's definitely, the effort is there.
One of the things I gotta say though is that the developers, while they are doing good, they're focusing too much on what they say is the quote unquote feel of the game instead of actually, doing more and adding more instead of just tweaking number values or reducing this or that. Like they're focusing too much on values and not enough on content. And while I'm aware that they're taking a longer schedule for updates to actually maybe have more time to develop this, I feel like they should have used the time that they had to develop it before to actually push out any new content instead of doing this like mid chapter one. Because right now, what this is giving me is this is giving me a big feel of crap. We never had time to push all this out, but we're losing money. Quick, release a chapter and we'll just release the features as we go. Like that just seems very off, and this is extremely
Yes.
bad. Because as like I said before, Fiend has no growth. Survivors have gotten a lot of growth with the reworks they have to their craftables and classes, the way that spells work, all like in general, and then Fiends have nothing to their names. They still have nothing because what I'm thinking is the game developers just or the main developers for the gameplay just focused too heavily on the survivor side, and they didn't have enough time to make the killer side of it all. Because like as of now, like I'm gonna repeat myself. Yeah, Fiends just suck. They have no growth.
I feel like everything would have been a lot better if they had waited until, let's say, now to re-release
Yeah,
and come out with the Fiend web and the new map and the new Fiend and all of the new stuff. I
Yeah.
feel like everything would have been a lot better.
because what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to spread themselves so thin, or not spread themselves thin, but they're trying to push out like small patches and hotfix just to keep us satiated. But they're not giving us actual content. Like we go back to the game thinking, "Oh, hey, a new update," and then we all act surprised when it's like, "Oh, hey, the game hasn't changed. This is still, kind of survivor sided. This is still kind of boring. There's no intrinsic skill value here."
Let
Like,
me ask
people-
you,
Go ahead.
if they do, let's say they do put the fiend spells out, how much are we really going to like that? Like I personally have already gotten fed up with the survivors spells set out. I've got like one or two spells I pick. I have an endless amount of tokens. I can't spend them all fast enough. Even if they came out with a killer side, I'm not sure.
Well,
Because-
they did
Go
state
ahead.
that they're going to be adding more items for the tokens to be spent on.
Yeah.
Which I think
But
will be
like,
good.
so does that mean we carry in more, just more items and like what the?
The biggest thing is most people here know I've probably been one of the most bluntest about behavior in DVD and its lack of doing anything in relevance to making its game better other than just cash grabbing. This game has a very bad history in terms of the fact that they did go dark. They really didn't do much between Nightmare and After Dark. And the fact that there really isn't too much content. But they have improved dramatically in their communications. They're pushing patches regularly in terms of things that we would wish Behavior would have done with their game a
Oh
long
my
time
god!
ago.
If Behavior had been doing this would be
But-
I agree.
But the ultimate thing is in the end of the day, this game, I want it to freaking succeed because I love the hell
I
out of
love
this
this
game.
game.
It has such a good atmosphere. The voice
But
acting, the environment, everything. Go ahead.
It's just the only problem that you're running into is the fact that there is not enough there to pull people into the game. Not talking about balance, not talking about, it's the fact that the gameplay is not grabbing enough. There's not enough content.
It's not
just-
even just that. It's also like the story. I mean, when people ask me what the lore of the game is, it's hard to say because even the story is
I
incomplete.
still can't figure out any of the lore.
The lore as far as we know it. As far
In
as we
all
know, the
honesty,
lore
it's
is
4 years in. We're finally understanding the lore of Dead by Daylight.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but what I mean, like the new Sawmill, right? The first 3 maps have what? Webs, spider eggs everywhere, and they're not even a spider map. We get Sawmill. This is where the spider came from. This is the spider's map. Where's a
Yup.
single web?
Yeah, there's nothing.
There's nothing. I think that was just a leftover map that was supposed to be pushed out earlier, and they finished it, pushed it out, and just like labeled everything feels incomplete.
It's a part of a different map pack. The first gym, bell tower, and library are part of the school map pack, and then this is the
and
first map, a part of the
camp yard or
forest, the
something, or
camp
forest.
map pack. Yeah, exactly.
I remember all that.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
a lot of this isn't the fact that it's incomplete. I think it's more rushed.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
I agree.
I think it's more of the fact that right now it's their crunch time, because at this point in time, it's like the numbers aren't there. It's like I've even gone back to Dead by Daylight myself because I cannot sustain on last year anymore. But long story short is there's just, don't be honking at me.
Gotta move on.
But long story short, it comes down to the fact that they're in such a huge crunch time right now that they don't have, like, they wasted so much time.
Yes.
And now they're actually trying to get things pushed, but I don't know if they've got enough time left in them.
The other
And
thing
that's
I'm
more-
worried about.
That's my biggest fear right now, is the fact that do they have the funds in this? Like, can they make this game grow and be great? Yes, this game has such huge potential if they have the time and it gets the ability to.
I gotta agree with Marth here, because the thing is that I've noticed a lot that this game has a opposite issue of what I've noticed most indie games have. Most indie games tend to ignore their base game and try to add on more content to try to make it more appealing. But this game has the opposite problem. It's focusing too much on what they've had before, and they're not growing and adding anything else. Like Marth said, there really is nothing here. It's just 15 to 16 minutes of running around and dying or doing an objective, and then repeat the process.
I think it would be amazing if they told everyone, we're gonna be taking not a
Month-long
2-week break, not a month-long break, but a month-long. We're not going to be releasing patches for, let's say, a month, and when we come back, we're gonna have the Fiend Web, we're gonna have a new map, we might have the Father out, but I would rather have them take that month instead of it being, okay, we're gonna keep releasing these short little patches, and then it take 3 months for something new.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying. They're just trying too hard to just smooth things out little by little instead of actually focusing on dropping things that should be, big content updates instead of just let's tweak these values here.
But
This
what
isn't
about
full.
the?
Well, in all honesty, though, they had to tweak those values.
They did.
Yeah, yes. Some of those values, okay, are justified. Yes, I will agree.
But what about the competition right around the corner, though, for this game? Like, let's say they do fix this stuff. You got Resident Evil Resistance in a month, Predator Hunting Grounds coming out, and they're all asymmetrical horrors holding much bigger title names. I love last year, and I think it's got great potential as well. I'm just scared, like, it's going to get lost in the sea of competition.
Ultimately, and that's the case, because they're right now they ultimately, if they can make it to where they push it out, come back here, like, granted this relaunch was them getting it onto Steam, it still wasn't ready to come out yet.
Yep.
No.
The thing is, now with Project Resistance and Predator, I really don't think they fit the genre, because
I agree with that.
Project Resistance is more of a chess style asymmetrical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you got to plant.
you don't have a killer. You have a single person. But like for me, for example, I didn't get into these games because I was like one killer. I got into it because it was horror, you know.
Understandable.
And in Resident Evil, zombies, man. You
Well,
got
but watching its beta game, unless the game has completely transposed, that game wasn't scary at all.
no, but I like the theme of zombie. I mean, Dead by Daylight's not scary at all for me. There's some jump scares
Same.
because I can't hear something and it just pops up on my screen.
Mhm.
But I'm sure Mr. X in a dark room, because I think you can turn off the lights and pop Mr. X in there. That would scare the shit out of me. Just that, like, oh my god, he's there, and then get punched in the face. But just like that, like the theme of things. Last year's theme was school horror, you know, and that was kind of cool because it was. But now it's not. Now it's card game horror, which again makes it's just
Still cool, but it's a different
cool, but
idea.
not like I said. I feel the word incomplete. Like if it had a whole thing where we had like 8 fiends to choose from, had a whole deck of this crap, and you know
Mhm.
there are things that aesthetically would look a lot cooler, like when they added the resistances to the fiends. It would show up on their card, so
That would
you
be
know as a
awesome.
fiend.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like
just small aesthetic
yeah,
little
like
bits.
fire up for whatever and acid down
You
for
know, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just my like when a game is complete, there's a lot of love and small detail
Mhm.
that no one really at the first glance gives credit to. Even Dead by Daylight does have that, where they do a lot to make a lot of small stupid things.
Like the campfire in the background on the main
Campfire,
screen.
everything feels complete there. You go into the map, you go to a campfire. At the end, your screen is a campfire, and so it's just that theme. Resident Evil, to me, you're lab rats in a testing thing, and I'm gonna be playing Alex Wesker, and I'm gonna be planning my little zombies out because in last year, though we don't place units, you still kind of get that feel of planning things out. You know, you place your traps in the areas and you try to position yourself
Mhm.
to ambush. So it may not be the same genre, but asymmetrical, just as a whole, people do get attracted to. Oh, a team-based game against a strong guy. It's still out there. And like personally for me, I am hopping on the Resident Evil train. I don't think I'll leave last year. I'll still be around to play it,
Yes. Same.
but
I
I'm
think
very excited for the zombie thing.
Tide's true about the game losing its identity because when I saw that Forest trailer, I was like, this isn't last year. What the fuck are they doing? Like you have this action-packed, like rock and roll music going on in the background, a survivor carrying a chainsaw, this like badass music going on in the background. It's like, what the fuck? This isn't last year. This isn't horror. You're clearly showing that this is some sort of like adrenaline pumping, like fast. You're losing your identity.
But also, like the beginning of Sawmill, you don't go over an escape plan.
Yeah, where's the
Why?
escape plan? Why it
It's just
needs
a
an
it's just
escape
it's
plan.
literally Cold Stream for Left 4 Dead. It's literally just Cold.
There
I
you
think
go.
that
So-
I think that goes more along with the thing where the map was or parts of
Rushed.
elements of it were rushed, right? To where I agree with you though, Tide, where you say parts of it really do feel incomplete. I mean that's a big thing though, where some of it doesn't feel complete. I don't agree though about like they can't do a different idea of doing a forest map. Like not every single last year map has to be school themed or school based themed. It could be whatever themes that were created
agree with
creativity
that
they want
too.
to take it.
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
You're right, but I
But-
mean, just like no, because I expected to have a camp because they said they would release camp where the kids
Yeah.
get out and go do that thing. But I mean, like it was really focused on these high schoolers being tortured by like look at the 3 main fiends: human, spider.
Yes.
Like it's so out of place. We have spider, and I love spider. It's actually one of my favorites, and I'm really upset. But the thing is, like, each killer had a background of where they came from, and now spider exists because of this card game, and he's just a fiend within the game. And then same with father, but Strangler wasn't. He was a hobo across the street. The inmate was a prisoner from across the street.
Yeah,
This is a
Slasher was
really
janitor.
bad fucking
Yeah.
school. Now that I think about it.
Across
And then you look
from
at the
prison, across from the school. My favorite.
right. So like that original thing felt more complete than what it is now because you had escape plans, you knew what to do, you get out, and that's how it felt. Now I didn't expect every map to be a school, but you were high schoolers, and that was the theme: high schoolers versus slasher.
I was
killer.
hoping that with the forest, I was hoping they were going to do more like a campground thing and not the sawmill, But I
Yeah.
also, with the whole thing being complete, they literally released it without ambush spots. Like,
Yep.
They did. That's true.
like, come on, take a week longer, finish the map, don't push it out, be like, oh, they're so hungry for new content. Like, I'm fine playing the game as is right now. I want, like, actual content, not half content and then you get the other half in a month.
That's
Speaking
that.
of
Not all of
Hestia,
that though is in their control. There's certain dates they need to push.
Yes, I
certain
understand
things
true.
out,
that.
and that they're just forced to do it. In terms of though, do I think they're doing a job? I mean, I personally do think they're doing an amazing job compared to all, especially in terms of communication compared to what we had in Nightmare.
Communication is something
That's
I
that
mean,
they've done.
even with zero communication, me and like a lot of my friends, we played this game for an entire year, over a year, with no communication. I love this game, and there's a lot more people that are coming to this game that also really, really enjoy this game, and they're going to keep playing it. Yes, though the biggest holes is what Marth was talking about, the lack of content. It's really not there, and also Tyde saying things really still don't feel complete about even the content we have now. And it's like, yes, those are totally fair points, and I completely agree with what they said. But it's like, realistically, it's like, do we have the time? That is the biggest question. But I know me, I love the game. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to wait. I'm going to support the devs. Maybe they're not doing things as the best, their abilities, but I think they're doing a really damn good job. And I just want to support them. I mean, I don't want to just sit here because, we're all saying, this is missing, this is missing. And it's like, but I do enjoy a lot what they're doing, and I just want to, hope that they can keep doing it up, keep up the work that they're doing constantly to where we're getting it at faster paces and better quality of the stuff that they're pushing out. And 2 new map packs are planned before Chapter 2, and the Phoenix Kingdom is also planned before Chapter 2 as well. And there's a lot other content stuff that they haven't talked about that is also planned beforehand. So it's not like there isn't stuff to add different flavor and variety to keep in there. That we're gonna see in the next couple months. But I do promise there's a lot more there's a lot more planned than was being let on or what we're even talking about right now. So
I assume there is, but like for me, for example, if I were to play it today,
this isn't very promising.
I just kind of like.
Of course, I agree with you. But how long did DVD take to get going? I mean, it wasn't like the best, the hottest, ASIM horror game when it came out in the first couple of years.
You're absolutely
that
right.
can only work for so long, though.
Yeah, you're right too.
But there was I forgot how to put it. There was a lot more reach with Dead by Daylight. I can't explain it exactly how they got all those people, but if
their
Total Biscuit looked at it even type thing.
Their reach was because it was the first.
Yes.
To actually
it was the first.
That's the only reason why DVD made it. Yeah. If DVD came out like it did 4 years ago, and there was a successful game prior to it, it would be the exact same situation.
If we switch launch dates of DVD and last year, would probably be.
Yeah, I honestly think that it's because the expectations for Asymmetrical at this point are higher because of Dead by Daylight.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And truthfully, I think that whatever next successor does come out, it does need to come out more than 3 killers, more than 4 survivors, and it needs to feel more complete. That's what every video game has done, is it takes what's already there because the ideas are there and just polishes and improves on them. Last year didn't do that. Last year is following the footsteps, so it's behind, has to catch up to even be comparable.
Well, you also have to think they're a lot smaller of a studio than Dead by Daylight ever was, too.
The team for Dead by Daylight, I think they're about equal from when they both started.
Well, but they had corporations behind them.
Yes.
Behavior Entertainment and Starbreeze.
Right. I think that Elastic Games does also have someone behind them that's not publicly announced.
They were
James
full
Wearing.
Kickstarter.
No, not full Kickstarter. They did take a investor.
Okay, that's different though. You have, because Behavior and Starbreeze are successful. Well, I can't say successful because I don't know their history, but they were established game studios.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the investor that says, "Yeah, here's the money," but he wasn't there to coach and be there as a a professor of telling you, "Hey, this is some ways we succeeded. This is what you need to. This is how you can kind of succeed." The developers are doing it like, don't get me wrong, the game is nowhere near ready. We can say that all night long, but the game's potential, if these devs do have the time, if they can make out the resources, they can still knock this game out of the
I
park.
100% agree with that.
It's just the biggest thing is of time. That's
Yeah.
all it comes down to. Like, I'm gonna still support it. I'm gonna still give it everything I can. But the thing is just, can they last? And that's gonna be the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Let's let the
So
let's
it
let the
all
host
comes
speak.
down to time in the end. It's just with the new competition coming out, with the stream of content seeming like it's not enough, but it's just gonna come down to time, like Marth was saying. Anyone want to cover anything really quickly before we wrap?
Last thing I
up?
want to say, something I really just want to say right now. One of the biggest things I see people complain about for Strangler, about like nerfing him and all that. Strangler's ability is not the issue. He is the only fiend that can sprint and attack at the same time. It's so annoying.
Oh my god, they need to do that. Like,
He's the only one that can, like, he can sprint behind you and keep smacking you in the backside of the head so you fall over. No one else can do that. Everyone has a cooldown, and then
Well,
Yes.
Spider can.
Spider can.
Wait, no.
If Spider can, but Spider does like what, like 15 damage?
No, but Spider bumps you forward though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spider bumps
She
you.
gives you a bit.
Plus,
I think
you
I've noticed
can
too.
spit
Strangler's
acid on someone
melee-
and does like 0 damage.
Yeah, no, Strangler, what I've noticed too is that they've made it so when a Strangler swings, he gets backed up a bit. I've noticed that they've added
Mhm.
negative knockback to the Strangler. Like, they've had,
Yes.
I don't know why they added that, but I guess it's the thing. But without a doubt, I think the Strangler's chain makes him powerful, and I think whatever they need to do with it, as long as it's good, I'm okay with it. But they need to stop thinking about, oh, rework Strangler, do this, do that with
They
the
need to
chain.
buff
No.
everything
Stop
to
the, okay,
Strangler.
make him strangle, make him deadly with his ability, but he shouldn't be a right mouse killer, because I can tell you from experiences with Baefu, right mousing works wonders, and it shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
It should not. But
I
it
think the
does.
biggest problem with that, which is one of the things, because survivors can get away from the strangler that tries to do that. They can outrun him, but the biggest thing is that right now the hitboxes
Hitboxes are
very
absolute garbage.
stuffed. So right now the survivor hitboxes for the
It's
pipe,
just whoever's
it's
closest.
30 units in front of them, and with that it's 40 units in front of them, and for a killer melee is 100 units in front of them.
What the
So
fuck?
it's a very huge difference compared
Yeah.
to killer hitbox and survivor hitbox, and that's going to be changed. They're going to put the killer hitbox to the same as the bat hitbox. It's going to be 40 units
thank
as well. So you'll have to be more accurate. You can't just, I guess, run somebody down, spam them like that as stranglers you could in the past. It'll be so. I mean, there'll be a few more changes. Maybe it could be tweaked, maybe like 50 units or something like that to give them a
Yeah.
little more reach. But that can all be looked at, obviously. But yeah, that's a big thing right now is the fact that you're getting hit by strangler even though you sprint jumped away, and somehow that melee still hit you. Giants pressuring you in the corner by punches. Hitting you in the corner that really aren't hitting you, but the hitbox is so huge, it's the problem. Cleave, everyone knows slasher cleave is absolute bullshit. I mean, that thing is hitting you from way in front of him. It shouldn't be. It's things like that that will ultimately be changed.
Yes.
That shouldn't be a problem anymore. Yeah.
I think we are now at over an hour and a half.
Yeah. A little bit over.
Yeah, just a little
A little-
over.
little-
A little over an hour.
We had a good combo though. So.
Yeah, this
Yep.
was a very good podcast. Everyone, thank you for coming. Check everyone out on Twitch, on YouTube. Baefu, twitch.tv/Baefu, twitch.tv/Marth, twitch.tv/PixelatedPower, twitch.tv/TydeTyme, and then twitch.tv/TheGodlyOne. Tide is YouTube, Marth. Everyone, just check everyone out where you can. I'll be putting everyone's names and links in the description. Thank you, everybody, for coming and watching this episode, and see y'all later.